Hi, fourth graders, and welcome to Writer's Workshop. Today in Writer's Workshop, we're going to have our last day to draft out our narrative writing stories. Now, many of you have already drafted really long and really strong narrative stories, and your teachers are so excited to read them. But today we're going to spend our last day of drafting focusing on cracking open and going back to some parts of our stories that we could expand or add more details to. Let me show you what I mean. So, cracking open sentences means that you're finding parts that maybe don't have a lot of detail or maybe might seem a little tired, and then you're working to add more detail and add that description to make it more interesting. When cracking open tired sentences, I often like to think of a geode. Have you ever seen a geode before? So, a geode is a type of rock, and on the outside, it looks like this. It looks just like any other rock. It's boring, it's just a rock. However, when you crack it open, inside a geode is full of beautiful crystals. This idea of how something can be boring on the outside but super beautiful on the inside can work in writing too. Cracking open words and sentences can really help us add details to our story. When you're cracking open details and words to our stories, there are two steps we follow. Step one is we collect tired words. You collect those outside geode rocks. These are words that really don't have any images. They're vague or abstract words. They're words that the writer maybe used too often, or sometimes they can even just be boring words or boring parts. Parts that you also notice yourself moving really quickly through time or through a place can be a key to say, oh, okay, maybe I need to stop here and crack open this part. Once you find the part that you want to crack open and you find that geode, I want you to actually crack it open and take some time to add some detail. To do that, you can replace the words with descriptive words. You might add things of what something looks like or feels like. You might add some dialogue too. And you really want to make that boring word or sentence explode with excitement. So, authors that we know very well do this every time they write. I want to show you what I mean. Author Kate DiCamillo, who wrote Tiger Rising, could have just wrote a sentence like this. It was a rainy and dreary day. A lot of the time, the setting of the Tiger Rising took place when it was raining. It rained almost the whole book. But she didn't just say it was rainy and a dreary day. Instead, she cracked open that sentence to sound something like this. It was early morning, and it looked like it might rain. It had been raining every day for almost 2 weeks. The sky was gray, and the air was thick and still. Fog was hugging the ground. To Rob, it seemed as if the tiger was some magic trick, rising out of the mist. He was so astounded at his discovery, so amazed, that he stood and stared. Okay, so writers, do you see how Kate DiCamillo, when she was writing The Tiger Rising, took time to not just say it was a rainy and dreary day, but she really made us picture in our heads what that looked like. I could picture that fog really being gray and thick and still over the earth. Early morning, it's really cloudy. I could really picture that in my head. This is the work that we're going to do today. But before you start on your own, I need some help with mine, and I want to show you how I started cracking open some of my own sentences. So, I started drafting my own stories, and when I was drafting, there was this one sentence I came across here. The streets were empty as I drove to the grocery store. So to recap, I'm writing about that story that I'm going to the grocery store and the crazy experience that happened during quarantine. So the streets were empty as I drove to the grocery store. That is true. It's a true thing that happened. But to me, it's kind of a tired sentence because a lot could have happened and I was thinking a lot of things as I drove to that grocery store. So I'm not just going to skip over it. Instead, I'm actually going to add to that sentence and crack it open to make it even more interesting. So I'm going to cross that out. And instead, I want to show you what I did. Oops. I took some time to add So, writers, I took some time to take this sentence that seemed tired and kind of boring, and I really broke it down. Listen into what I did. The air was cool and crisp, and the streets were empty. A lady walked by with her dog. A man crossed the street up ahead. It was as if I had moved into another world. I rounded the corner to Broadway Street, but caught the light. Waiting for it to turn green, I stared at the empty roadway. How eerie, I thought to myself. Usually the streets of Boston were packed with life, but today it seemed like something out of a ghost town. A shiver ran down my spine as the light turned green and I took my last turn to the grocery store. So, writers, do you see how I didn't just really quickly add a sentence to that boring or tired part? Instead, I really took time to add details so that you could really picture in your head what I was doing, what it looked like, and really how I felt. So this is the work that you're going to do today. After this video, I want you to scroll down to your draft. And today, I want you to really find 1, 2, or maybe 3 at least parts in your story that you can really crack open. The options are endless, and I'm really looking forward to seeing your work. So let's get started.